Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to create armor and make this armor update with the character's animations. We are also going to implement a simple armor formula to reduce damage based on our defense stat value. Okay, so let's get started. So in the course files, we actually do have armor included. So in combat system, course files, meshes, armor, we have the example steel armor. However, this armor was only created for the UE4 mannequin. Unfortunately, I don't have armor for the UE5 mannequin, so what we're going to need to do is select this guy here, we need to go to his mesh, and we can set him to the UE4 mannequin, which the UE5 third-person template should come with a UE4 mannequin by default. Okay, and for the animation blueprint for this guy, we need to give him his own animation blueprint. So let's go ahead and find our other animation blueprint, find ABP Manny, and we can go ahead and duplicate and retarget animation blueprint. And by default, the engine will come with an IK retargeter to retarget the UE5 mannequin to the UE4 mannequin. So select that. But also, one thing to make sure of is before you do this, so make sure that retarget root is set to true, and make sure that the source chain for the root is root, and make sure the translation mode is globally scaled. And let's go ahead and retarget. This went ahead and put everything in our content browser. So let's just go ahead and add that to a new folder. UE4 underscore Manny anims. Just go ahead and select all of these and add this here. We can also add this into the characters folder and add this into the UE4 mannequin folder. Okay, and now select the animation blueprint, and we can select this animation blueprint for this character. Okay, and that's just fine. So now when we play, the enemy should be the UE4 mannequin. This character won't play a hit reaction animation because we have him set here to use the UE5 mannequin. So actually a better way to do this would be to go to the combat system blueprints, and let's create a child of this combat character. We can just call this guy BP underscore test dummy character. Now let's open this guy up. So what we can do is just copy all of this code, and we can override that event in this character blueprint. Okay, let's go to this animation. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate and retarget. And I'm going to retarget to the UE4 Manny. And the folder is going to be characters, UE4 mannequin, UE4 Manny animations, and retarget. Okay, let's see if root motion is working. Okay, it seems like root motion is working. I'm going to go ahead and save all. And now I'm going to get this guy to play this animation instead. And we can go ahead and delete this guy from the world. And we can go ahead and add our test dummy in. Let's make sure we set his model and his animation blueprint. Let's see here, where is his animation blueprint? So yeah, this one's called ABP Manny. Let's just rename this one to ABP underscore UE4 underscore Manny. That way we can know the difference. Now we can type in UE4 and we can find the ABP UE4 Manny, compile and save. And now we can add this guy to the map, and let's just turn him around. And let's test it out and see if it works. And that works just fine. And as you can see, we're having a weird issue where his weapon is sort of spawned in a weird location that looks a little painful. But the reason why that's happening is because he doesn't have the proper sockets added to his skeleton. And if you wanted to, you could add the proper sockets to the skeleton. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything except for the code that gives him the weapon. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to override event begin play. Okay. And now he's not even holding a weapon. And so now what we can do is give this character armor. So let's go ahead and create our base actor for armor. So let's go ahead and create a child class of base equipable. And if you want the armor to follow the animations of the character, you'll have to use something called master pose. So what we're going to call this is BP underscore master pose. Okay, open that up. So inside of this actor, we need to override a function and give it different functionality. And so the function that we need to override is attach actor. And we can delete the call to parent function, we don't need that. So inside of here, we're gonna get the skeletal mesh, and let's get skeletal mesh. And we need to check, is this valid? If this is valid, then we need to get the item skeletal mesh. And we need to call attach component to component. And for the socket name, we can just get socket name. Okay, the target will be item skeletal mesh, and the parent will be, let's get owner, and let's cast to character. And let's go ahead and convert this to a pure cast. From here, let's get the mesh, and that will be the parent. For the location, rotation, and scale rule, let's just make this snap to target. After that, we need to get the item skeletal mesh, and we need to set master pose component. Okay, and when we set master pose component, the new master bone component will be the mesh. Okay, now compile and save. And now that we've done that, we can go to the test dummy. And here we can spawn actor from class. And actually, just for testing, what we can do is, let's go to variables. Let's create an array of base equipable. And make that an array, and we'll just call this starting equipment. And now we can go for each loop. And for each loop, we go ahead and spawn the equipment actor. And after we spawn it, we call on equipped. Order and instigator is going to be self. And we also need to spawn transform, so we can get actor transform and plug this into spawn transform. And that will get rid of that error. And now we need to add the armor, but before we can do that, we need to go ahead and create the actors for the armor. So go ahead and go to combat system, blueprints, actors, created as a child from master pose. Let's create each of our pieces of armor. So we can call this one BP underscore steel helmet. And this one will be BP underscore steel chest. And this one will be BP underscore steel gauntlets. This will be BP underscore steel boots. So let's go to steel helmet, and for the skeletal mesh, let's go ahead and add the helmet. Okay, and there's the helmet. As you can see, it was added. And let's go to steel chest. Okay, now let's add the chest. So here's the chest armor, and now we need to add the gauntlets. Okay, and now let's add the boots. Okay, compile and save. Okay, now let's go back to our test dummy character, and let's go ahead and add our armor. So let's add the helmet, the chest, gauntlet, and the boots. Okay, compile and save, and let's see if it worked. So as you can see, it's worked. The character is now wearing the armor. When he plays an animation, the armor also moves with the animation. So we didn't even actually need to create a socket for this armor, and that's because we used set master pose component. The master pose component is a blueprint callable function that enables you to set a skinned mesh component object, or skinned mesh component objects, as children to another skinned mesh component object considered to be the master. For example, you can define the torso as the master pose component, assign an animation to the torso, then add feet, legs, hands, and a head as children, which will follow the animations assigned to the torso. So basically, we are going to use the character mesh as the master pose component for the armor. So that way the armor will follow the animation assigned to the character mesh. This can be used for an armor system. And in fact, this is similar to how I set up the armor for the advanced ARPG combat system. And so now we can add a defense stat. So to add a defense stat, let's go to, go ahead and close all those windows out now. We no longer need them, but we are going to need the stats component. So let's go ahead and open that up. And let's go to blueprints, enums, stats. And we actually don't need this example stat value we had earlier, so let's just delete it. We actually already have an armor stat value here, so we don't need to add it. And so what we can do is just manipulate this value. So let's give it a base value in the character blueprint. Let's go to stats component, base stats. This will be armor, and the default value will be 0, and the max value will be, let's say the max value will be 100. Okay, so now our max value is 100, and our base value is 0. And so what we can do now is we can go to blueprints. Let's open up our base armor actor, and inside of here what we can do is we can override onEquipped. And in onEquipped, let's leave the onParent function. Let's just get owner. And we can get component by class. Let's get the stats component. Let's go ahead and call modify current stat value. And the value that we need to modify is armor. And so we can add, let's add 25. We can actually promote this to a variable if we want to. Let's call this one armor value. By default, we have 25 armor. We can make this a category stats. So on equipped, we'll add 25 to the armor. And on unequipped, so let's go ahead and override. On unequipped, we can simply multiply this by -1. So that way it'll take away the amount that it added when we unequip it. And we'll call this here. And also the armor value should not regenerate, so let's go ahead and make that false on both of them. Okay, let's compile and save. And now what we can do is let's go to the blueprints, test dummy, and on completed, so this is when the loop is completed. Let's get the stats component, and let's see what our current armor value is. So let's get current value for stat, armor. We'll go ahead and print string. The current armor value should be 100, so let's test that. And it is 100, exactly as it should be. Let's go ahead and save all first. So what we can do now is go into our stats component, and let's go to our take damage function. So let's go ahead and reduce the damage based on our armor stat value. And so to do that, we're going to need to manipulate the damage value. So we're going to need to create a local variable, and this is going to be our local damage. So let's go ahead and get current stat value, and we need to get the current armor value. And I'm going to write a comment, and this comment would tell us what the damage formula is. So this is a simple formula that is damage multiplier is equal to damage divided by damage plus armor. Reduced damage will equal damage times damage multiplier. Let's go ahead and set the local damage. I'm just going to put that up here to get it out of the way. So now what we're going to do is just build this formula here. So we're going to divide, and we're going to divide the end damage divided by the damage plus the armor value. Plug this in here to divide, and we're going to multiply the damage by this value here. We also need to clamp this to make sure the damage doesn't get too low. So clamp, float. This result will be the value and the max, and the min will be 0. Okay, and now we can remove this end damage and replace that with the local damage. Okay, compile and save. And so now the amount of damage that this character receives to his health should be reduced. So to test that, there's a print string here. Let's go ahead and delete that. And inside the take damage function, let's go ahead and print the damage that we're dealing here. So this is the damage that the character is receiving. Let's get the local damage and print that out here. Let's go to our actor's tough sword, and we'll know from this that we should be dealing 20 damage, and the lot attack isn't being modified by our damage multiplier, so we should just be doing 20 damage and 20 damage only. But since the character we are hitting will have 100 armor, that should reduce the damage that the character takes. So let's go ahead and test that. I'll go up to the character and hit him. And as you can see, I'm only dealing 3 damage. So that reduced the damage quite a lot. So if you want, you can go to the base master pose, and let's just set this to something really low, like 5. See if that's better. So now we're dealing 10 damage, and that's reducing it quite a lot. Let's just set this to something like 2. Okay, we're doing 14 damage. And that is reducing the damage a lot less. And this is just an example of an armor system and how you can use this system to reduce the damage taken based on an armor stat value. That brings us to the end of this video. In this video, we have created armor that the character can equip. We have also learned about Master Pose component and how to make the armor follow the animations of the character. This armor can have an armor stat value, which uses a formula to reduce the damage taken. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we are going to learn about gameplay tags and how we can use them to improve our combat system.